Yeah. Nice people talking. Okay, I think we're going to start. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to introduce Jane. Some of you probably, most of you know who Jane is because this is not her first time presenting here. If you don't know Jane, Jane has a social work background. She's been a therapist. One of her memorable experiences is going up north and teaching. And she says actually not so much teaching as she learned a lot from First Nations. So that's something she's really very grateful about. She's a mother of 3 children and a husband and 5 grandkids. So, should I? You didn't hear what I said in the beginning, or? Okay. Pardon me. You heard me? Good. Thank you. Yeah. So, a mother and grandmother, 3 children and 5 grandkids. And so the thing that's really interesting, they all live within 5 miles from where she lives. Isn't that fortunate? So she has the privilege of cooking, and she says big home and lots of people, and so a little bit noisy, yeah. So I think we're in for a treat, and she's also part of the Unitarian Writers group, and so yeah, welcome. Please give a nice welcome for Jane.
Thanks, everybody, for coming out. In this series about humanism, it's a series that doesn't really require a monthly fee or a password, so that's kind of a welcome feature to it. Chris has provided interesting historical and pertinent aspects of humanism, expanding our knowledge and awareness. Today, we're going to take a more personal look at humanism, reflecting on our relationship and how humanism fits in our lives. We will also examine what promotes humanism, as well as the barriers. I'll share information relating to humanism in our lives and create opportunities to share your personal beliefs and experiences, while also learning from fellow participants. A shared conversation that does not seek the right answer, but a willingness to share and listen compassionately as we harvest other viewpoints. And since it's spring under the snow, possibly we'll find possibly we'll be planting some seeds for thought also after this evening. So what I'd like to do is just take a moment to settle in. We can have busy lives and lots of stuff happening. And so to make this an evening that really fits yourself, and lets you sort of bring yourself and your thoughts forward, either to share or not. Introverts in here who heard me talking about sharing need not be afraid. You can also be the receiver of information and don't feel obliged to be sort of the most extroverted person in the crowd. So just take a moment and feel the contact points for your back on your bum on your chair. If it's comfortable for you, both feet on the floor is also another way of really feeling the ground beneath you. And take a moment, if you choose to close your eyes, you can, or if you want to, just casting your eyes down so that you're not really distracted by anything else, and you can really center in on yourself. Possibly notice your breathing. No need to change your breath or alter it. Just noticing your breathing in and noticing your breathing out. Your breath has been sustaining you for your life. And noticing how the breath in and the breath out seeks its own rhythm. If your mind wanders away, just gently bring it back to focusing on your breathing. Nothing more to do than noticing your breath. And when you're feeling ready, you can bring some movement to your fingers and your toes. And open your eyes to join together. I think we have, are you here for the Humanism? Yeah, come on in. You can come in even if you're not here for the Humanism series. I've already been beautifully introduced. Thank you very much for those kind words. My little note say introduce myself, but I don't need to do that one. So what I'd like us to do is moving along here. Humanism and you. If you could, I think this was in the announcement, but if you could either, if you've had time to think about this, or just thinking about it now, what prose, poetry, movie, a concert, a song, an event, so many events globally, artistic creation speaks to you of humanism? Yes. Lennon's song, Imagine? Yeah. Oops. Yes? Yes?
Talking about his experiences in Africa with the AIDS, and he's a wonderful orator. Just some of the images of his speech.
Yes. Thank you. It was a Stephen Lewis from the Massey series at CBC. Yes. He does. They have a Grands and More organization here. Yeah. Yes. Oh, that's interesting. Can you just say a few more words about that?
I think that people that do the creative dancing are expressing their own humanity, and they do it very well. So, just one of the things that came to me out of the blue.
Thank you. Thank you. Something that resonated with you. Yes. He had mentioned creative dance. Oh. Oops, sorry. There. I had heard a composition by this guy called Christopher Tin, and he's Asian, and he has done, I wrote down the name of the song, and it's, I gotta find the piece of paper, but I won't do that right now. And it's, the words are in Swahili. He's an Asian American who's written a song, really taken an African verse of essentially trying to encourage rain to come, and it's beautifully sung. I did kind of, when I looked at it and heard it, I really enjoyed it. And then I got thinking, well, is that sort of appropriation of another culture? And yet there was all sorts of comments, just, yeah, it was on YouTube, from people who were from the area where it was Swahili, people who, that was their language, were praising it and saying it was wonderful, and so appreciating that their language was being used in this way. But it's very uplifting music. I'll find the name of it before I go. You know what? Are you okay using this? I'm just thinking, no? Okay. So songs? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. But it moves you. Yeah. Lovely. Yes? Yes. The Declaration of Human Rights. Mm-hmm. Yes. Nothing is neither good nor bad, but thinking makes it so. Thank you.
Classically, Nicomachean Ethics by Aristotle is sort of a classic humanist text. I mean, it all is about fulfilling your potential, and the rational potential being the distinguishing characteristics of human beings. I guess that represents humanism.
Interesting. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. One of the other things I also thought was in Minneapolis, when the people were really supporting, like essentially resisting ICE and caring for their neighbors, making sure they had food and protection when they had to go places. I thought that was also a very, to me, that whole event spoke to me of humanism. Is anyone else sitting there with one they're just kind of on the tip of their tongue but haven't decided whether to share or not? Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh, that's, yeah. I had heard some of the songs there, and I had just seen a clip of that. Yeah, it is really trying to bring people together. I think one of the protest songs was also chanted outside the hotel when the ICE guys were there, and there was something about it's never too late to change your mind. That was the song, yeah. Uh-huh. Yes. Lovely. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. Now, see handout, and everybody's going, we don't have one yet, Jane. Hold on. Passing those on, and I've got more here. What I'd like you to do, you'll find a copy of the Humanism and Its Aspirations. If you can just take a few minutes and have a little read over in case, if you are familiar with it, that's fine, but just to refresh your memory or to learn anew about it. If you could just take a little read over, we'll give some time for that to a small group, so I think we can take some time for that. And then we'll have a little, just going to be inviting people to have their reactions to reading it, sort of what jumps out at you, what piques your curiosity, anything that sort of as you use some critical analysis, which is humanism is advocating for, anything that you'd like to comment on. So just take a few minutes to do that. If you're like me, if anybody needs a pen to write down ideas before they, like me, float away out of my head, there's pens here if anybody would like one. Any pen? If you want to jot down anything. It's like trying to get a piece of gum out of a... Is anybody else needing a pen? You're good? Sure. Pen for anybody? You know what? I'll just leave you. You can pass the box.
Thank you.
Hi. Oh, right behind you. So in your perusing this manifest, it's called a manifest. I think it's the third manifesto about humanism. Any reactions to reading that? Pardon? So where are the humanists? Pardon? I hear, yeah. Why are not more people here? Yeah. Mm-hmm. If I'm not mistaken, I think it has probably got a different, what would I say, kind of philosophy or way of worshiping or theology, I don't know. Hello? Yes.
I agree with what you're saying. So it's, when I read this, and I've read this before, but I think there's always a misunderstanding by a lot of people.
Sure. Sorry.
I just feel a lot of people are focused only maybe on one or two things. People think humanist is just rational and cold and just about not believing in God and stuff like that, as opposed to what it is. And so I think it's really unfortunate. People don't really understand what humanism is about, and I think that's a challenge humanists have in terms of communicating what humanism is.
Thank you. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to share? I won't force. They're welcome to use the microphone, but I will not force it on anyone who doesn't want to use it.
Well, I agree with the humanistic values as far as they go, but I guess my objection to humanism is it's too narrow. For lifelong environmentalists and so on, it seems over hubristic to find all value only in human beings, not in other forms of life. And one of the great issues is how do you define values in other forms of life? A very simple example would be health or well-being. Those are terms that apply to humans and they apply to other living creatures. And they are value terms. So killing an animal is destroying its well-being. And this doesn't say anything about that.
Thank you. Anybody else have a comment they want to make about this article? Okay.
Situation in Quebec, the forbidding of religious symbols by certain occupations, and it was quite controversial. And for me, a bit of a dilemma there. How do you balance that? Mm-hmm. The secular, what is secularism, and again, here in Canada, we're diverse, right?
Yes.
And even in terms of religious belief and being accepting and so forth.
Mm-hmm. So how are you kind of balancing the secularism and that freedom of religion? Yeah. Interesting. Thank you for, anyone else have something? Yeah, okay.
Mostly, I can agree with humanism, but in a gray area, I think one of the differences in my life is rationality. Yeah, I'm rational, but there are some things that are over and against rationality, like spirit and intuition and feelings. And these are very strong in my life, and so I think that's a difference.
Thank you. Oh, hold on.
They comment that working to benefit society maximizes individual happiness is only true some of the time, not all of the time. We know of cultures that oppress women with the aim of preserving their culture.
No, I hear what you're saying. Thank you. When I was not particularly familiar with humanism until I started to come to what I'll call Chris's series. He'd probably hate that I called it that, but I just did. When I read this, I thought this is really, it's more of a menu than a recipe. It offers you kind of, these are our dreams or our goals, but not the recipe. Which I don't think it's called aspirations, so it wasn't meant to be the recipe. But sometimes in how you approach goals, the process you use or the journey you get there can also have an impact on the goals that you want. So it was certainly, I think, has very, very high goals, for sure. What I'd like us to do next, you can turn over your page. I want to look at humanism and values, and your values. So on the back of your page, you've got a list of values, and what you can do, what I'd like you to do is circle 5 or 7 of them that fit for you personally. When you're looking at the list, you can think, what values do you believe in? Do these values help define you? Is this who you are at your best? With the qualifier in there that you're not required to live these values out 24/7. Sometimes our values are very important, but they're not always something we can do 24/7, but that you don't have to rule them out. So select 5 or 7 of these values that are significant to your life. Also on your sheet, I think you have, but in case they're not listed in here, then just put what you would like to have as a value if you don't find something in the list that's provided. Once you've got the values that you would like to select, what I'd like us to do is break into some small groups. And there's questions that you see following that, looking at humanism and values. So if you break into a small group, maybe what we'll do, what if we just take the 4 of you people, and then 3 of you, and can you join them? And then 1, 2, 3, 4 here as a group, and then the front row can be a group. And what I'd like you to do is think about this and then share within your group. And if somebody would be able to report back so that just the key points that came from your group we can share with the rest of the crowd here. Take a couple of minutes to wind up, and if you could just choose somebody to just share with the group a couple of the points that might have been made, just to kind of get everybody in the loop on what your conversation was like. Oh, and comment about status. You know, that's an interesting comment about status. Yeah, and I would say that I think more along that line. Although I'm thinking of some people who were, there may have been people. I'm trying to think in history who's been wanting to have not the status for the sake of status, but status for influencing and sort of spreading what they would see as possibly humanism, Somebody who wants to have influence in that vein. No, that's for later. Oh. Yeah, that's for later on. That's the last round. Yeah, but just sharing, I think that'd be interesting for people to know that that's came from your conversation, because it is interesting. I think it will be, yeah, I think it will be. Because status does tend to smack more of sort of privilege and gold toilets and stuff like that. Especially, yes. Especially at this time, you know, the current events now. Okay. Oh. I have to interrupt. I'm looking around seeing good conversations. I don't like interrupting them, but there's more stuff that we want to get to. So if we could sort of draw our conversation to a close. I know there's sometimes I feel like a little pressure, oh no, we have to now do the report back, and I don't have the details right. But just even if there's one thing that somebody thought about or that was mentioned in the group that some people either disagreed with or agreed with, or it's the one thing that you can remember and you've been voted to report back. So whatever makes sense. Can I pick on you guys?
Well, I think the one thing that we agreed on is there is definitely one problematic so-called value in the list, and that's status. I think a lot of the problems of the world, through the millennia have been caused by people seeking power and status. And we could do with a little bit more hope, fairness, compassion, etc.
Thank you. Do you have a person reporting back here? You don't qualify.
Well, then I will speak for Glenn. He said, I grew up in a secular home, and doing these things is what my parents did, and it was just the way people were, being neighborly or whatever. And we didn't talk about humanism. That wasn't a label used to describe that behavior. So I guess, why are we using that particular label for human decency?
Oh, interesting comment, yeah. That is an interesting question. Mm-hmm. Do we have a report? Oh, do we have a report back here?
We sort of looked at the same things the first group did, particularly power, pride, and status. And we thought that the power and pride probably were not values that were consistent with humanism, although you could use your position of power to promote humanistic values, possibly. I don't know. And the same applies to status. We each have a status that either may be inherited or we achieve, by our own efforts, but people look at other people and ascribe to them a status or a ranking in society, and whatever that may be, if you do, I'll say, good things with it, which implies things consistent with humanistic values, then maybe status can be a good thing. But unfortunately, very often it's not used with the best of intentions. So.
Yeah, I think in our current climate, with our orange friends south of the border, the whole idea of status has just been kind of put on steroids, in the narrowest perspective of status, actually.
We had a number of ideas. We wanted to add empathy to the values, and spirituality, and I think that we were having a problem mainly with the narrowness that's expressed here. Also, to look at some of these things like family. Family's nice, but you could be Ma Baker too, and she played a lot of emphasis on family, as did her children, and tradition. Yeah, that's a nice thing too. But sometimes your traditions are all screwed up as well, and status. That's another one, and power, pride. All these things can be good, and they can be really terrible too. So yeah, and we were looking at like the individual and community, and you don't want to be like, well, I'm worth it, so I'm going to do that. That's the sort of thing you have in the ads nowadays, or okay, run right over me because whatever I'm no good. There's some sort of a dichotomy, going here. Those are the things we were talking about, mainly the funny things that.
Thank you. Some very interesting conversations happening. One thing that you might find interesting, when you look at your sheet, the first 7, except for learning, the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the first 7 values, love, respect, courage, honesty, wisdom, truth, and humility, are the 7 sacred teachings in many, many indigenous nations. So it's interesting that they do have those characteristics, and they have courage. But I think what they would say is that they all blend, and so that your courage would also be tempered by your humility. So if you're feeling that you were so very courageous and wanted to seek power, then that would be tempered by your humility. So it's that interrelationship and interweaving of those different values.
You gotta have courage to stand up against the things that are wrong with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think. Mm-hmm. Thank you, everybody. So I want to take a little look at barriers to humanism. So sort of the ones that are pretty obvious would be denial of racism, sexism, ableism, any of the isms. Or another barrier is acceptance of that. When you think about white supremacist groups. The other that can be is the knowledge gaps with and between different groups. So sometimes one of the barriers is just a lack of knowledge about a different group. I think it's a lack of knowledge and a lack of curiosity also. More barriers to humanism, systemic issues. These support inequality and oppression, such as systemic racism in health, as well as stereotypes and which are sort of that generalized, validated in society. It's just seen it ends up becoming sort of part of the air that you breathe. And we can think of roles of women in society. I'm just giving one example here. I'm not saying that's all. And it ends up sort of like the fish in water. They can't see it because it's just been there for so long and it's so entrenched. This is looking back at systemic values. Because sometimes it's hard to understand what systemic values are, or systemic issues. They can be deeply entrenched in organizations, industry, society, and they can affect large populations. These issues stem from policies and legislation, power structures, cultural norms that create inequitable outcomes, such as systemic racism, economic inequality, or bureaucratic policy. A while back in Winnipeg, there have been a number of cases of falsely accused individuals. I believe it was 3 Indigenous men who had been charged with murder. And when you look back at what the process was for how that came about, it really just smacks of systemic issues within the legal system. And when I say legal system, it was from police to the justice system to throughout. And it was interesting reading about it. It was kind of horrifying to think that had happened. And yet I was certainly alive when that had happened and was working as a professional in that time. And so the system that I was working in, which would have been possibly related to, at one point was related to the justice system, that when we see that growth, the growth is wonderful, and we see the progress, but that also speaks to what sort of looking at what's happening in our organizations now, because it can be very hard to see that. Not impossible, but hard. Oops. More barriers to humanism. A perspective that only bad people are racist, or any of the isms, and the corollary that good people are not racist or sexist. We like to think of ourselves as good people because we do believe in human rights, and we want to act in a just way. And yet when we think of being in a system that has either racism or sexism, then how are we? We are good people, but we're in a system, and sort of are we part of that? Not then that then we become bad people, but no, that just having the ability to not polarize good people and bad people, because this is the world that we live in now, and so really doing away with that sort of labeling. Well, I'm the good person because I'm this way, and I'm the bad person because I'm not this way, but really getting rid of those and taking a really broad perspective on looking at sort of what the biases are in society. I think some of the other barriers to humanism is when people are overwhelmed and helpless and hopeless. It's really hard to be giving and thinking of others and implying empathy when you are exhausted and helpless and hopeless. That can be very challenging. Yes?
You know, we hear the phrase donor fatigue when it comes to charitable relief.
I'm sorry?
We hear the phrase donor fatigue.
Yes, yes.
When it comes to charitable.
Yeah. And also compassion fatigue. Yeah. And also there's that part of feeling guilty that you're not doing enough. So people can be highly active and very engaged, but their expectations are that maybe something will change, and then it stays the same, and people can get worn down. So these are some barriers to humanism. Whoops. We're going to get back to this, we're going to have a small group at the end, and just maybe do some sharing about what people do for their own times when they're feeling overwhelmed and hopeless or guilty. Sort of how do we get ourselves out of that, and how do we get supports for that? Oops, this is okay. Sorry. One of the other barriers to humanism is implicit bias. Has anybody heard of implicit bias? One person? You might find this interesting. I hope you find it interesting. So implicit bias, it's a below-conscious brain process from our ancient brains, from our ancient evolution as humans, and it remains active in our lives today. Humans do have the most complex brain. It can be hard to imagine that we, in our modern times, with our sophisticated, intelligent brains, are impacted so profoundly by a really old, ancient evolution of our brain. It's actually called the fear response. And anyone who was at the workshops we did on happiness will know about this. We talked about it as negativity bias. This is like the next door neighbor to negativity bias. It comes from the same understanding of why our brains evolved the way they did. Oops.
Would it be like listening to our reptile brain?
It is indeed your reptile brain. It's reptile with a little more than reptile. But yeah, that idea. Yes. So the fear response. So we are evolving our brains 100,000, depending on, there's all sorts of different arguments about when we're humans, and I'm not going to do that. If anyone's interested in that, I congratulate you. Between 100,000 and 35,000 years ago, humans were growing their brains. Their brains were evolving. And as you can see, it's built for tribes or family collectives or clans. It wasn't built for complex nations, and it was designed for a predator-rich environment where you really had to be on the defensive and be keen and alert to make sure you did not get gobbled up by whatever beast was roaming around. And there was sort of scarce resources. You could have times of plenty, but you could also have times of scarcity. It's a fast and frugal process to divide out us and them. Because when we're looking at this, the way they're safe is by knowing who their family members are, because that's where the safety and security is. You can see we've got a woman here with the next generation. That's what they needed, the next generation coming along. And so they relied on one another, and that's where the stability was. So they needed to recognize one another. And they also needed to recognize when there was a predator or a threat, some kind of danger. And so one of the ways they did that was by having a fight, flight, and freeze response. So if there's any hint of a threat, be it a smell, be it a sound, or be it a look, as in somebody from another tribe who may not look like them, he may be not a familiar face, or she, and so then you get ready to defend. That's a threat. So you have to be on the defensive for that. So that's your 911 response, which is either fight or flight. So your nervous system shoots up, your 911 system shoots up, gets ready, because this is different than what I'm used to. This is not family, this is foe. So if you weren't family, you were foe. Well, I think he's foe because they're just kind of sitting around. She's still playing with the baby. He's got a spear and he's not pointing it at him. So I think he's one of them. Could call it the Margaret Thatcher theme, but anyhow, yeah, he's one of them. Well, I think they're small enough groups they know who's who. And by this theory, what you would, if he was unknown, people would not be sitting, they'd be standing. The mother would be taking the child to keep the child safe, and the spear would be pointing at him. It's a fast and frugal process to scan out us and them. And it's not great for complex modern social situations like we have now. So here we have two systems. This is the system here. This is for this implicit bias. It starts out in the amygdala right here, where you get that 911 response. That's 911. Yikes, this is dangerous. We need to protect ourselves, and we protect the family. And that happens in milliseconds. That just boom. This is through the cortex. You get a much more thoughtful response. You're analyzing. You're taking your time to ponder here. This is another way of making decisions. That could be your that's more explicit, and this is implicit. So that's what's still happening in our heads now. That still happens now. Implicit bias, it's unconscious, it's below our awareness, it's an automatic reaction, and it's ancient, and it happens in milliseconds. The explicit it's a conscious preference or bias. You might still be biased, but you have possibly a rationale for that, or you've thought it through. You are aware of it. It can be expressed openly. You can also hide it too. If you have a bias that you know about and you want to hide it, you can also hide that. And it gets revealed in conversations and viewpoints, or it gets hidden, depending on the audience. So that's the difference between those two. And here, just another sample. Here's that quick response, snap, 911, fight or flight. Probably lots of fighting. And then here's a little bit more thoughtful, nurturing the brain. Oops. So when you think of that, I'm going down here, how might implicit bias impact our values, beliefs, and actions of humanism? If we have that quick response, yeah, we could be angry. We could have an unknown bias or unrecognized bias that happens. We could have that bias within ourselves, although we think of ourselves as good and fair. Yes?
I read this word recently, implicit bias by a healthcare provider, a physician in an emergency room dealing with patients. And that came up, the unconscious bias in the diagnosis and treatment of a patient in an emergency room by a physician.
Well, it's a process that happens to us regardless of what degrees we've got or no degrees. It's a process that happens within us. And it is acting within us. It's part of how we are. Well, this system essentially, with emotion, fear hijacks your thinking. The emotion hijacks, the fear will hijack your thinking. Yes?
Jack into our fears.
Mm-hmm.
We both irrationally, whether we just, oh well, this immigration thing is one of the big ones because they're different.
Mm-hmm.
And be careful with that. They're taking money from us. We gotta go for that politician, whether he's the stupidest one.
Fear is a very, very powerful, can be a very, very powerful motivator. And when you think of it, it's kind of that's the fear response. That's what's kept us alive in situations in ancient times. And it is very, very strong within us. And it can be, and certainly has been well used to drive votes and to influence in other ways.
I understand that the
Yeah. I think it's 24. 24 years, they say the brain is mature. Some of us are waiting. Some of us are waiting.
There was an individual named Daniel Kahneman who wrote a book, Thinking Fast. He got a Nobel Prize. He was applying it mainly to a lot of economic decisions, especially relating to the stock market and how investing gets done.
There's a lot of research now on the impact of essentially emotions and what it's doing. There is a study, Harvard has, not a study, it has it's called the Implicit Association Test, and they're collecting data on this. So you can go online and take it for free. And what they do is they will take something such as different categories, such as skin tone, disability, gender, religion, age, or weight. And they combine that with some positive and negative words. And then they'll either show you a picture. And what I did it was with Indigenous. And so they would show a picture of an Indigenous person, and then they flash the words on that are either positive or negative. They also assign some, the other thing they do is just have names that are associated with an indigeneity. And then you respond that way. And then they record the timing of your responses. And so mine was, when it came to, it ended up being white and sort of positive stuff. Oh, I was very quick at doing those, you know. So it doesn't, it gives you a result. It does not judge you on how you are as a human. It doesn't come out and say, well, you're really racist or not. But it's a way of how they're measuring the human response, because it is a human response. It doesn't mean we're bad. It doesn't mean we're good. It means we're human. So science, what's interesting about this, actually, and if anyone's interested in it, it's that implicit association test through Harvard, and it is online if anyone wanted to take it. But science is telling us this is what we're like. This is who we are. So we can have good intentions and we can be good people. And unfortunately, we can also act in ways where we're biased, in a way that we probably wouldn't want to. Oops, here we go. So an antidote to implicit bias. One of the big things is to acknowledge that there is such a thing. Acknowledging that there is such a creature as implicit bias. We talked before about negativity bias, that the human brain pays more attention to the negative than the positive. All we need is a job review where we get the sandwich of one good thing, one thing we need to work at, and another good thing. And we know when we go home, we remember the negative, the one we need to work on, 2 to 1, but we still hold that. That's human nature. So acknowledging implicit bias without judging ourselves, without being harsh to ourselves about it. So one of the things I think is really important when we think about implicit bias, you can also check online if you want more information about it, but bring a gentle curiosity and the wisdom of humanity to yourself when you're wondering about implicit bias. Because sometimes it's hard to take in. It can feel really uncomfortable with the ideas that possibly I'm being biased in a way I don't want to be. The other thing that I think is also important about this is one of the things about humanism is scientific and rational analysis. And when we look at this is it's scientific research, and it also has been rationally analyzed. And so this is something that is happening within us. Humanism also asks us to take new departures in thought, and this is a new departure in thought. I think we have thought before that, we are good people and we believe in human rights and we believe in justice, And now we have to take a little look in that mirror and go, oh, maybe there's something more that I need to be thinking about or pondering. The other thing that the humanity does is it talks about the worth and dignity of everybody. So when we look at implicit bias without judgment, realizing that our worth and our value is no less, that is still there. And welcoming a challenge of the future. So that's one of the things, is just starting to get familiar with implicit bias and allowing some space to be curious about it. One of the other things that can be helpful, an antidote, is a bit of mindfulness, slowing down. Because as we slow down, we get to reflect a little more, and we can do some self-reflection. We can sit with some of those inside questions, or just sort of a quiet time to be kind to ourselves and also view what our viewpoint is. Practicing perspective taking. So we have one perspective, but how else might this be viewed? What is another worldview? One of the things that we have in humanism is the idea of progressive cultures. They talk about progressive cultures have worked to free humanity from the brutalities of mere survival. But whose idea of a progressive culture? How do we define a progressive culture? And again, perspective taking. Because we have a very North American perspective. One of my experiences is being at ceremony with some Indigenous elders, and their worldview is somewhat different than our worldview. Not all, but with the community that I was they were sharing with me, their worldview is somewhat different. And so we can do some perspective taking. Again, engaging in critical thinking with humility and compassion. And also asking for feedback. Asking for feedback. You know, I'm thinking this, or I'm saying this, and if you're with somebody who is possibly from a different cultural experience, or somebody who is in some way if sort of has ableism, or you're wondering about race or whatever, asking for feedback. Because then that can be a gift. It can be hard to hear if it's not positive, but it's also a gift for us. Oops. And now, the last group question or comments. What time is it here? Oh, okay, we have time. Do we want to do a coffee break and then come back? Or this is our last, or you just want to do, I'm not sure, how do people want to do? Coffee break? Okay, coffee break, and when we come back, we can get into our groups and maybe have a conversation about this, and then we can have a departure. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. All right. We're down to 2 last slides, I think it is. We're near the end. The end is near. Humanism and you. You know what? We don't need to. We got a small enough group here. We don't need to break into small groups. We'll just stay where we are. But everybody has to please share, even if you were pretend you're in a small group. So from large organizational involvement to small personal involvement, in your life, what ways do you support humanism? How has humanism supported you? And this one, how do you sustain your involvement in the face of feeling overwhelmed? Now, that might be my bias. I have friends and they get exhausted by what's happening. And sometimes it just can suck energy. And sort of how do you keep engaged and not overwhelmed by the feelings that can come about just because of so many issues right now, so many social problems right now, and so much news. Sure.
I just have one comment. Phrasing it that way, how do you support humanism, makes it sound like you're supporting some social movement or group or whatever. Should it not be more, in what ways do we live according to humanist principles or something like that?
Well, this is the Humanism series. I thought I should just slip it in there. It's the Humanism series, and I thought I should play by the rules. But yes, and yeah, I hear what you're saying. So, sort of, how do we engage humanism in our lives? Can people translate it in their head? Because I can't change that right now. But take a very broad perspective on looking at ways that you are involved with humanism in your life. Does anybody want to share anything? Oh, wow.
And that is humanist to the nth degree over there. The people that are supporting that organization.
Thank you. Thanks. Anybody else want to share what they... That's good. Hi. Would you like this?
Sometimes a controlled way of actually stepping back and say, I'm going to just lie down and empty my mind now, and then I will think of all the good things in my life. And then I will get up and feel refreshed.
Thank you. That sounds like gratitude, having gratitude for the good things. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else got something you would like to share? I know people do lots more here. Some people protest.
I don't know that I have this articulated very well, but I've been reading various Christian consultants and successful churches just as background for this church. I think, so what you have to find is there's all the human relating and community and listening and all that stuff. So you learn human interactions and so on. Then beyond that, you find some area of service that kind of fits your abilities, where you can see the needs, and you may get better at that. I mean, practice makes better. And then the other part is finding your vocation, and that all of this is exploring possibilities. It's the way I frame it. All life is lived in the face of possibilities. And so possibilities are overwhelming. And so you have to find ways to specialize them and find growth points and so on. And so I think you find a place and seek out the possibilities for improvement from there.
Thank you. Anybody else have something they'd like to share? Oh, did you? Oh, you're going to brave the microphone.
Yeah. And I have this big thing about charity versus justice. I'm not very good at one-on-one support for somebody, but I want to do it like more politically and make some changes that will benefit everybody. So that's is it, charity versus justice, important to me.
Thank you. Anybody else have something you would like to share?
Well, what I do, I actually do it year-round. I volunteer doing tax returns for people that are lower income situations. And right now, in tax season, that very last line is very pertinent right now.
You have to lie down and be grateful tax season isn't 12 months of the year. Well, I was going to say, yeah. Tax deadline is what the issue is. Anybody else have something they would like to share about themselves? Or if you're feeling too Canadian to share about yourself, about someone else?
Well, I live a very good life. I have enough money to live on. Nobody's dropping bombs on me. I have good friends I go out for lunch with once a week. I've been retired for 32 years. We were just talking at break that I've probably collected about $1.2 million out of the pension fund, and I think CN Pension has got a hitman out for me right now. And I'm very happy. I've lived through World War II, and I've seen wars continuously right up till today, and I think human beings are going to keep on having wars and killing each other. It's just what we do. We're just animals with our little animal-based brain that reacts to things, and we draw lines on the planet and say, if you cross that line, I'll kill you. And we're still doing it, and we always will. Anyways, I live a very good life. I'm a lucky son of a bitch, and I'm having a good time here tonight learning all about humanism.
Thank you. Anybody else got a comment or some helpful information for sustaining involvement in the face of overwhelm?
Only that it's rather difficult to sustain your involvement because, especially if you seem to be always on the wrong side and never win, and you're like, so you get involved in politics and you want to do this and do that, and no, and so you keep hitting the wall, and then after a while, you just say, I'm not going to do it anymore.
Yeah, it can feel difficult. I know just from my work that lots of times we sometimes need to take a break, to step away, not to quit. If you choose to quit, that's also a personal choice, but to step away sometimes and refill your own cup, and also bringing a sense of self-compassion, because it is a struggle and it can be painful. And we're not alone. Because the other thing that's also helpful is sort of leaning on others, also allowing others to lean on you, to be of service and to offer yourself some kindness, and offering friends kindness and knowing that it can feel big, but small acts can make a difference also. Some of them have trauma. Yeah. Yeah, it's many, it's paramedics, it's hospital staff, it's medical staff, I think it's in the legal system. It's very challenging times, but there's also uplifting times too. There's times when things work out well. And we need to remember that newspapers don't sell very well unless it's negative. That we do just hearing here, and you probably know what other people are doing also to support well-being. And also offering yourself some humanism, some support, honoring your value and your worth as an individual. Honoring not knowing, because sometimes we don't know, and so living not knowing can be a challenge. But honoring that challenge too, because that's also something that humanism talks about, that we don't always know what our future is. So honoring that. And there were Canadians to even say, okay, I'm finding the courage to do that too. It can be small courage. It doesn't have to be big courage. And if it's not courage on Wednesday, maybe Friday morning there'll be a little bit of courage. But also with that compassion and kindness for oneself. I think that's very important. 2 more slides. And then the quiz. Just kidding. So cultivating open dialogue, focusing on curiosity over convincing to build connections. We don't necessarily need to convince someone of our point of view or our worldview, but sometimes we can do that because we're humans. But on curiosity about the other's perspective and building connections there.
I think it's really important, curiosity versus passing judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Curiosity gets lost in it's a constant judgment.
Yes. Yeah. And yeah, absolutely. So that non-judgmental, and certainly curiosity, it does tamp down that judgmental piece. Creating inclusive spaces, from what I've read and seen here, I think that the Unitarian Church is really a strong advocate for creating inclusive spaces. Joining advocacy groups, and celebrating the small stuff. You don't need to wait for the big event. Small things happen. Everything has started really small at the beginning. And never underestimate sort of the power that you have. And celebrating that small stuff. Bring empathy, self-compassion, and emotional resonance. Oops. This is by May Sarton. Oh, you know what I'm going to do? Hold on. I like this one. Oops. No. Hold on. Sorry. I had one of the moon. There it is. Help us to be ever faithful gardeners of the Spirit, who know that without darkness nothing comes to birth, and without light nothing flowers. So I wish you recognition of all the flowers that you have planted and will be blooming sometime. That's a metaphor and also a fact for the gardeners. And thank you. Thank you very much for all the sharing. Really appreciated it. And yes, have a good evening.
Well, I guess you give her thank you very much, Jane. So I give her a really warm and very strong round of applause, please. Thank you. So May Humanist Forum is going to be about memes. So Chris Brackman is going to speak about that in terms of how humans share knowledge through memes. So I think it'll be very stimulating and interesting discussion So hopefully we'll see you the second Wednesday of May. Thank you.